Hello, my name is Ronnie Manning and I'm the Director of Public Relations at Yubico. We would like to thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Protecting the Education Sector with the YubiKey. Presenting today will be Sue Heim, Information Development Manager, and David Maples, Solutions Engineer from Yubico. The webinar will go approximately 30 minutes with a Q&A session to follow. To submit your questions, please use the questions form in the GoToWebinar menu on the right side of your screen. Again, we'd like to thank you for attending, and now I would like to pass it off to Sue.
Thank you, Ronnie. I'd like to start out today by talking a little bit about the education threat landscape. According to FireEye, from 2006 to 2013, there were 550 universities who reported a breach. In 2014, nearly 10% of all breaches were in education, according to Symantec. They trailed only healthcare at 37% and retail at 11%. Last year, in 2015, there were quite a few breaches that were blamed on Chinese hackers. One of those was at Penn State University. In addition, at UConn, student social security numbers and credit card numbers were taken, while at Washington State University and Johns Hopkins Universities, they were also targeted attacks. Harvard had a data breach that affected 8 of their colleges, and that was also possibly the result of a Chinese attack. The LA Times reported that 80,000 students who took a mandatory online course on sexual harassment that was provided by an outside vendor was also reportedly attacked. And already in 2016, the University of Florida was hacked, and ironically, one of China's top universities, Tsinghua, was hacked by an Islamic State jihadist group. So, if you're a numbers person, here you go. I read on the Lawfare blog that there were more than 40 colleges and universities in the U.S. alone that were attacked in the 3 years from mid-2012 to mid-2015. The data that was stolen, it includes information from employees, faculty, students, and yes, even applicants. So why are educational institutions the focus of attacks? It isn't because their IT systems are inadequate. It's because they are targets of the information that they have available on their systems. They've become even bigger targets because their systems store intellectual property and sensitive data, such as financial, health, and academic records. This is all the type of information that the bad guys want. Google Apps for Education, Dropbox, and GitHub are expected to top 110 million users in the next 4 years. These ever-increasing number of users for cloud apps that are used within education and ever more increasing numbers of people who are bringing their own devices into the educational institutions, now is the time for education to rethink security for their employees, their faculty, and their students. Next slide, please. Yubico's customers. Our business model is simple. We offer our YubiKeys online with free open source software, and we allow anyone to integrate with their own software, services, or enterprise IT systems. Today, we have shipped millions of YubiKeys to more than 150 countries. And 8 of the top 10 internet companies use YubiKeys internally and have or are in the process of making support for their own end users. We have 1,000 schools all around the world using our YubiKeys, and 450 of those are in higher education. Next slide, please. So before we dive into the details of the YubiKey, I want to take a look at the authentication landscape of the most common authentication technologies. Common wisdom states that there's sort of a trade-off between security, convenience, and low cost. First, we have a smart card. So the smart card is based on public key cryptography. And the traditional smart card offers high security. It protects against phishing and man-in-the-middle attacks. But it can also come with a high cost and the complexity of readers, drivers, client software, and CAs. A one-time password, which comes without that really complex infrastructure, also offers a lower security. And you have the phone, which is shown in the middle here, and it has become a popular method for generating one-time passwords, but it itself has become vulnerable for phishing and malware software. Some computers and phones, they have built-in software chips, but when you make your authenticator a part of the computing device, it can have benefits and limitations, especially when you're talking about security. So recently, there has been a lot of buzz around biometrics. Our CEO recently bought the new Nexus 5X phone. So when she planned to try out the function for unlocking the phone with biometrics, she received a notification message that said, "Be aware that biometrics can be lower security than a PIN." For me, myself, I have a problem with biometrics on my own iPhone because my fingerprint is not always recognized, especially when it's cold outside. So fingerprints, while they're often convenient, they can be basically static identities that are easily copied, but they're also very painful to revoke. So what are we trying to do here? With a YubiKey, we leverage the range of strong open authentication protocols. We made it work out of the box with a simple touch for any number of services. Next slide, please. This slide shows the two form factors that we have for the YubiKey. So to authenticate with the YubiKey, you just place it into a USB port. The one on the left, the YubiKey 4, shows our keychain form factor. And with that one, you just tap the blinking light that's in the gold area in the center. In the middle graphic, the YubiKey 4 Nano, that YubiKey fits entirely inside of the USB port, and you just touch the golden edge to generate your login credentials. When you touch a YubiKey, all you are doing is verifying that you are a human being on the other end of that key. You're not generating a biometric. You're just proving that you're not a Trojan. And for mobile devices that support NFC, our YubiKey Neo is an NFC key, and you can tap the YubiKey Neo to an NFC-enabled phone. Next slide, please. So where can I use a YubiKey? This slide shows the growing number of protocols and applications that you can use a YubiKey with. The unique thing about a YubiKey is that you can use one single YubiKey with many different protocols. I'm going to explain how I use my YubiKey every day. When I start working in the morning, I log into my Gmail account and my Google for Work apps. I use GitHub and Dropbox with my YubiKey, and I use FIDO U2F. One single YubiKey works with all three of these accounts straight out of the box with no third-party software or service installed. Then that same YubiKey that I have on my keychain, I also use it with my LastPass account, I use it with my corporate Salesforce account, and with WordPress. All of those three accounts are using OTP or one-time password. And I can also use my YubiKey as a PIV smart card to log into my Windows laptop. All three of these protocols are supported across all of these apps with a simple touch on my one single YubiKey. And user experience is king. By the time I'm requested to touch my YubiKey, the YubiKey already knows which protocol it needs to use. I don't have to stop and figure out whether I'm using U2F or whether I'm using OTP. All I need to know is that I have to touch my key and then I'm in. That's it. No codes to read, no codes to type, no codes to mistype. It means that it's a super great user experience, which leads to great user adoption. And that's exactly what Yubico is experiencing right now. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to pass the presentation over to David, who is going to talk about our case studies and a little bit more about the protocols. David?
Thank you, Sue. Hello, everyone. So we're going to look at Duke University. They're one of the first educational institutions who have integrated the YubiKey into their backend support. Back in 2012, Duke University was looking for a solution to protect user accounts and admin access. They wanted to be ahead of the curve as far as multi-factor authentication for the accounts that could do the most damage to their students and faculty if they were exposed. Duke implemented its first second-factor authentication pilot using the YubiKey, taking advantage of the free open-source Shibboleth YubiKey plugin that was offered by Yubico to secure SSO login to privileged accounts. They liked it so much that from that pilot, Duke expanded the systems and users protected by that YubiKey to a multitude of other systems. Currently, more users use the YubiKey to authenticate via SSH, RDP, SSO via Shibboleth, and some as many as 40 times a day. They're also looking to expand it even further as more and more systems require second-factor authentication. So Duke's Chief Information Officer explained that the YubiKey's adoption by the university was due not only to its ease of integration, but also its ease of use. If I can read the quote, "The ease of securely authenticating into our systems by touching the button on the YubiKey was a driving force for the inclusion of YubiKeys as part of our multi-factor strategy." Next slide, please. So let's go through the mode support on the YubiKey. Sue briefly touched them, and I'll go into a little bit more greater depth. First is the Yubico OTP. That stands for one-time password mode. In this mode, the YubiKey requires no software to be loaded on the machine, no drivers, no hardware, no nothing. In fact, it passes all of the code as a series of keystrokes on a virtual keyboard. When you plug in the YubiKey, it identifies to itself, the host machine, that it's a USB keyboard. That means it runs on every OS that supports a USB keyboard and almost every machine out there, even ones that have the USB ports locked down to prevent unauthorized access. The OTP mode supported a host of different services. Next slide, if you would. Thank you. The YubiKey is supported by a host of different services because the YubiKey is not limited to a single standard. You can configure the YubiKey to match your requirements. There's a number of modes supported by the YubiKey. The first among them is the Yubico OTP, and a OTP mode that takes full advantage of the fact that it requires no user typing. You just simply plug the YubiKey and touch the button. With the Yubico OTP, you generate a 44-character password, which is used to authenticate both the YubiKey and the user. The Yubico OTP can be validated either by a user's own validation server or by using our free online authentication service, the YubiCloud. A number of services take advantage of this, including LastPass, the online password manager, Duo Security, the authentication security providers, Ping ID, and Okta as single sign-on solutions and identity assurance offerings. In addition to that, the YubiKey also supports the more traditional oath standard. I'm sure you've all seen the 6 or 8-digit codes that are required to type in. You either get them off your phone with the Google Authenticator or off an old RSA token. The YubiKey can support both modes and use it to log into every place that a Google Authenticator is used, including Amazon, ForgeRock, Dropbox, and others. Now, the advantage of the YubiKey over more traditional tokens is that you have complete control of the secrets being loaded on your YubiKey. You don't have to trust anyone. You can load your own secrets on it and ensure that the secrets remain completely in your control. So hacking attempts against any other party, including Yubico, would not reveal any secrets about your security setup. Next slide, please. But the Yubico OTP is based off the previous generation's thinking, with an OTP code being sent as a series of keystrokes. The FIDO U2F is the next generation authentication framework. It was developed by Yubico and Google in response to Google's needs to protect itself against attacks similar to those being done against universities. The U2F was developed with 4 simple guiding principles. It had to be simple to use, which meant that the same process used for an OTP, simply plug in the YubiKey and touch the button, had to be preserved. And it had to work across every operating system without requiring additional software to be loaded. It had to be secure, going beyond the current OTP offerings to put together a security model using public key cryptography. That is asymmetric, where the secret is never exposed to everyone everywhere. This protects it against common attacks intercepting the authentication code as it's sent back and forth. Finally, the U2F protocol had to scale from both at the individual user level to largest enterprises, such as many of the educational institutions out there, and everything in between. It had to provide services supporting millions of customers at the same time, but also support any U2F device. And that's a big thing. You can use the same YubiKey with multiple services, actually a practically unlimited number of services. And key among all of those, U2F had to protect user privacy, shielding the users even more thoroughly from any breaches from not just the provider of the U2F device, but any services you use it with. With U2F, no personal data is stored in the YubiKey, U2F device, or any of the information needed to authenticate the U2F code. You can use the same U2F device with multiple services, and none of them know about any others. This ensures that user privacy is maintained, so if one service gets compromised, you can remain secure knowing that nothing else has been. For a demo of this, next slide please, we can walk through Gmail and Google, one of the first authentication implementations of the U2F protocol. Ronnie will switch to my screen right now. All right, so this is a traditional Gmail login Gmail screen. Right now I'm going to enable my U2F protocol. I'm going to go up to my icon in the upper right corner, going to open it up and click on the button labeled My Account to bring up my settings page. Once in my settings page, I'm going to go to the Sign In Security section on the far left and select the option Signing into Google. In the Signing into Google page, I'm going to select the option Two-Step Verification. As I click on this, I'm prompted to enter my password. Now, normally I'd be prompted to set up my phone as a backup form of authentication. However, that's already been done, so I don't need to worry about that. And now it's prompting me for my security key. I'm simply going to tap it and gain access to my two-step verification page. I'm going to click the option labeled Security Keys. It's the tab on the top at the far right. And click the button labeled Manage to manage the security keys assigned to my account. With this, I can see which YubiKeys have been assigned to my account, as well as the last time they were used to log in and the location they were logged in at. I'm going to add another security key now, another U2F device. I click the button labeled Add Security Key, bringing me up to the page. Right now, I'm going to plug in my YubiKey and click the button labeled Register. Right now, my YubiKey begins flashing. I'm simply going to tap it. All right. And of course, demoitis strikes at that particular moment. There we go. Simple tap it, and the loading turns to registered. With that, my YubiKey is now registered to my device, and I don't need to worry about anything else. It's just simple as that. I click Done, and you can see that the computer is loading, that I now have a new YubiKey associated with my account. Now to test this, I'm going to log out and log back in. I type in my password. As soon as my password is validated, my YubiKey begins blinking again. I touch the YubiKey, and I'm logged in. It's just that simple, one single touch. I'm now going to switch display back to Ronnie. Thank you, Ronnie. So that process was very simple. Simply plug in, touch the button, and you're good to go. The same process can be done with the same YubiKey with any U2F supported site, Dropbox, Docker, or GitHub. You can use the same YubiKey for an unlimited number of sites, and it's the exact same process for registering it and authenticating with it on every site. A single touch is all you need to authenticate. No personal data is required. Next slide, please. So, Google has recently added the U2F support for secure authentication, as well as Dropbox, to both their educational offerings. What these bring to you is, in conjunction with the security of the YubiKey, you get management tools allowing administrators to control the YubiKey rollout, provisioning, and revocation. Essentially, you can require the YubiKey for second-factor authentication to your most critical accounts first, and then roll it out to the less enterprise critical and educational critical accounts. You can bring your own keys, and this is key. Users, students, anyone who has a U2F security key or a YubiKey that supports U2F can bring their own U2F devices and register them themselves. You do not need to purchase them all and deploy them. You do not need to ensure that they're all from the same stock or assigned to you. You can, and as the U2F devices, U2F deployment in both Google and Dropbox expand, the same implementation will be expanded to even more services. GitHub recently added U2F support, and on the horizon, more and more services are coming to support U2F as a login authentication. Next slide, if you would. Sue?
Thank you, David. I'm going to talk a little bit now about what makes up Yubico's offerings. I'm going to start at the bottom. This is our hardware offerings, which communicate over USB or NFC. Our hardware comes in the several form factors, as we've already talked about, as the keychain and the nano form factor. Above the hardware is our software applets that support the wide variety of authentication and cryptographic protocols. The one-time password, that includes the Oath and Yubico OTP that David talked about, the public key crypto that includes the FIDO U2F, PIV, and OpenPGP, which we really didn't talk about. The hardware and software is what makes up our products. Our YubiKeys are priced from $18 to $50, depending on the number of protocols that are supported in the device. And then also, for our customers, we have a number of services that we offer. We have support, we have a hosted validation service, and we offer customization services. We also offer a YubiHSM, which is a lightweight hardware security module. It is designed to protect your encryption secrets on servers. Next slide, please. This slide talks a little bit about some statistics from the Google deployment. Google provided these statistics that I'm going to talk about. They come from their deployment of YubiKeys to their own internal users, as well as from making support of the YubiKey available to their Gmail users. They deployed U2F, and when they deployed U2F to their internal users, they no longer allowed their internal users to use their Google Authenticator app, which is shown on the right-hand side of the screen here. So what they collected and found was that when compared to their own Google Authenticator app, they found that the U2F app, the U2F, FIDO U2F, was 4 times faster to use, that the simple touch of a U2F YubiKey was significantly faster than having to pick up a phone, open an app, and then retype a password, or retype it again because you mistyped it the first time. One of the main reasons that Google deployed U2F was for the security that David previously mentioned. 1 out of 50 emails that can land in your inbox are due to phishing attempts. While Google has great spam filters that can catch most spam, it can still be difficult to catch individually customized phishing emails, even with a one-time password from the Google Authenticator app. So they found that with U2F and public key crypto, they saw significant fraud reduction. And then finally, Google was also able to reduce their support costs. There is a perception that paid hardware can be more costly to deploy than free software, but an industry average ticket cost for recovery is approximately $30 per ticket. And the reality can actually be different. With a backup YubiKey on your keychain, in your wallet, or even in your USB port, they found that users submitted fewer support tickets and were at a lower risk of being locked out than when compared to those who relied on a single phone or on an app on that phone. Next slide, please. So what happens if you lose your YubiKey? This is a common question that we hear. Just like I mentioned, we recommend that you keep multiple backup keys, just like you have a backup for your car or your house. Many of our customers and online services that support YubiKey also support backup alternative methods, such as using a phone or SMS or even backup codes. As David mentioned, there was a backup phone that would have been listed, or an SMS that would have been listed when he was enabling two-step verification with Gmail. But remember that if the recovery process uses a weaker authentication mechanism than the YubiKey, the overall security will be lower. So if necessary, use a less secure method to get access to your data, but be sure to obtain another YubiKey and set it up for use as soon as possible. And then interestingly, for best security, because we always recommend that users use an additional factor, that's why it's called second factor, the most commonly used factor today is a PIN or a password. But we're also seeing YubiKey customers developing solutions where the password itself is being replaced, and it's being replaced or combined with biometrics or even with geolocation on the phone. Next slide, please. So why does education love YubiKey? We've talked a little bit about this already. I'm going to put this all together in one slide. The YubiKey is simple to deploy and it's simple to use. So for users, what this means is you have a one-touch login device. It doesn't require a battery. It's crush and water resistant. So all of that is particularly appealing. For IT administrators, they particularly like knowing that a user can register their own device, that they are protected against phishing and man-in-the-middle attacks, yet the administrator has the ease-of-use management tools that helps to ensure that their security policy within their educational institution can be easily managed and easily enforced. And then for both users and administrators, there's the added flexibility of having a one device, too many services, so that you have one YubiKey that can be used across Google Apps for Education, for Dropbox, and for other protocols such as OTP or Windows or Mac login. And then even more importantly, Yubico is offering a special discount for schools. We're offering a great discount of 50% off of trays of 50 YubiKey 4 or YubiKey 4 Nano. And there's a link here on this slide, and you will get a PDF that will include a link that will give you more information on the next slide. Next slide, please, Ronnie. So this slide also includes a bunch of links that provide more information, including the link that provides more information for education. There's a video on using Google for Work, Dropbox. There's more information on the specifications for FIDO. There's information on our developer resources. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn the webinar back over to Ronnie, who is going to be hosting the questions that we have been receiving throughout the webinar, and David will be answering those questions. Ronnie?
Great, thanks, Sue. We have some questions that came in, but for anyone who still would like to submit, please use the questions form in the GoToWebinar menu that's on the, should be on the right side of your screen right now. So the first question that we have is, do YubiKeys work with iOS?
Well, unfortunately, the answer is not yet. Apple has not yet opened its NFC stack to third parties, which means that the YubiKey Neo, which uses NFC to communicate over wirelessly to devices such as your Android phone or tablet, cannot communicate with the iPhone, iPad, or other iOS devices. I urge everybody to contact Apple asking for this support of third-party NFC functions on their devices, but until Apple changes their mind, there's not a whole lot we can do. That being said, the YubiKey does work on OS X devices. That's the Macs, iMacs, and other laptops and desktops provided by Apple just fine, the same as it would work on a PC.
Great, thank you. Next is what systems do YubiKeys work on? A little more details on that.
So the YubiKeys are truly a cross-platform piece of technology. They work on any system that supports a USB keyboard. This includes Linux, OS X, and Windows. For U2F, again, the drivers are based on a human interface device using default drivers on Windows, OS X, and Linux. The only wrinkle is the smart card modes, which are supported natively on Windows but do not have native support embedded in OS X or Linux. A package, an open source package such as PCSC, would need to be installed on those systems in order for the YubiKey to work with them as a smart card. That being said, it's implemented in many systems doing just that, and as an open source packages, it costs nothing to add them.
I'd like to also add that for Chrome OS and Chromebook, the YubiKey also works on those systems.
Thanks, Sue. Yep, we actually just got a question come through. Does it work with Google Chrome OS and Chromebooks?
Yes, as a Linux-based solution, it does work on the Google Chrome OS and operating systems. In fact, Google has taken a step further to expand support for, I believe, smart cards in their solution as well.
Next is touching the YubiKey similar to a biometric?
The YubiKey is a capacitance sensor, basically ensuring that there is a physical person there rather than a Trojan attempting to trigger the YubiKey. Currently, biometric technology does not allow for a biometric device to fit on the YubiKey at the cost of the YubiKey and with the same durability and length of life as the YubiKey does. Once a biometric technology catches up with both the price, durability, and lifetime of the YubiKey, we would definitely be looking at integrating it into the YubiKey itself.
Next is how many YubiKeys can be registered with U2F accounts like Google and Dropbox?
That depends on the account in question. As you saw on the demo, Google supports over, I believe, 15 now, U2F devices for a single account. Dropbox supports 5 at last I registered. It really depends on the account in question. Every U2F account that we've seen so far supports multiple YubiKeys.
Thank you. Can I use a YubiKey for both my EDU accounts and also for my personal accounts?
Yes, with U2F you can use the same YubiKey for both accounts, as it creates a unique identifier and a unique U2F interaction for each account. Essentially, you can use the same hardware for multiple accounts without them being cross-contaminated or linked to each other.
Thank you. Currently, Chrome supports U2F. When do you expect other browsers to come on board?
We expect Firefox to come on board. We are working with them to add. We're working with Mozilla to add U2F support to the Firefox browser. We know that Microsoft is a member of the FIDO Alliance, and they're looking at implementing U2F into their browsers as well. However, since they are Microsoft, we can't force a time frame on that. Apple has shown interest in U2F, but has not committed to anything at this point. Other browsers, such as Opera, are already working on U2F support as well.
Okay, and will the smaller YubiKey Nano form factor, is it possible for it to fall out of a USB if it's in a laptop?
Absolutely not, unless there's a problem with your USB ports. The nano form factor for all the YubiKeys was designed to fit snugly inside a USB port and not be removed regularly. If it is falling out, there's probably an issue with the USB port there, and you should probably have your computer looked at.
Great, thank you. And we have one more question that came through, and that is, can students purchase their own YubiKeys and use with the educational institution systems that are in place?
With U2F, absolutely. U2F allows for a bring your own device schema, allowing you to take any U2F supporting device and use it with a U2F server. For other solutions such as OTP, it depends on how the solution is implemented. If you're using the YubiCloud, Yubico's free online authentication service, then yes, students can purchase YubiKeys with the default YubiCloud credentials loaded on them and use them with your service. However, if you're running your own internal validation server, only YubiKeys that you have registered, that you have programmed, that you have loaded the secrets onto would work with your service. This allows you to have control over the amount of access to different services. For some more critical ones, such as admin access to student data, you may want to run your own internal validation server, restricting it to just devices that you've programmed yourself and have complete physical control over. For other things, such as student services or resources that must be available to the public at large, U2F or the YubiCloud would be a easy way to add second factor authentication to that without requiring additional IT staff man hours or deployment of physical devices.
Great, thank you, David. I'd now like to pass back to Sue to close us out. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Facebook is one of our customers, just like Google, who has rolled out the YubiKey to all of their employees. They are using the YubiKey Nano as OTP, and they love the YubiKey. This quote right here is from Jennifer Henley, who is Facebook's Director of Security Operations, and she has said that the company has embraced the YubiKey, this small piece of technology that many people were questioning, they now love, and they talk about how it gives them flexibility but allows them to understand the heart of what we're doing is protecting people and their data. And on that note, I would like to thank you all for attending today's webinar. If you have any other questions, please go ahead and let us know. We will be sending you a PDF of today's webinar, and I am going to wish you all well, and again, have a great day. Thank you very much.